Hello guys and welcome back. Today I want to make a video covering the Queen's Gambit opening as one of the strongest openings you can use when you are playing as white. So there's different variations of Queen's Gambit. Today I want to cover we'll go over a bit of both accepted and declined. So Queen's Gambit is when we play d4, our opponent does d5, and then we play c4. So this is the start of the Queen's Gambit opening. Now, there's different ways that this can progress from here. So we can start off with if our opponent takes. So why is it called a gambit? It's a gambit because we're offering a pawn to get a positional advantage. That's what gambits are. The basic idea is that now that our opponent has taken with the central pawn, which was controlling central squares for him, we can now control the center with our central pawns, king and queen pawn here in the middle here. So that's the idea. He is ahead of pawn, however he is behind in control of the center. So in this position you can play this. This is a central variation of the Queen's Gambit, in which case our opponent might try to defend us from taking this pawn by going here, in which case we can go here and essentially threaten this pawn structure. So if your opponent does do this, especially if you're a beginner player, it's not really good for them because it does ruin their pawn structure a bit. So for example, a way that a beginner might defend it sometimes is that they might make a mistake like this, where actually they're just giving you a free pawn. You can take here. He can't take back. If he does, then you've now won his rook. So it can be problematic for your opponent when you play this move. Even when you're here, you can just take. Yep. They take back. And now you're here. Threatening this, again they cannot defend because you can just take this back easy. Free pawn. And also as well, even if they push this pawn, the pawn is lost as well through Queen A4 check and take, or you can even drop the knight back as well and look to take it as well, or control the center. Yeah, and take. So that's just basic ideas for beginners as to why this is important and why it's quite strong, this opening, because it helps you control center if it's accepted, and this pawn is always quite hard to defend generally. If you play the Queen's Gambit right, you should win back this pawn and continue to have a strong game, strong position to play from. So that's the Queen's Gambit accepted. Generally, that's like the basic opening theory as to how it works. Now, the most common way though that people play Queen's Gambit is through the decline. So this is called Queen's Gambit declined, where he's supporting this central pawn in the event that we take. So this theory for Queen's Gambit declined goes like this. Bring our knight out to c3 or f3, either way is fine. He will get his knight out to f6, bishop out. The bishop can go here, or it can go to this square as well. Either one is completely fine. Our opponent will unpin himself, and we can develop our knight. He castles, we get this out. He might push back, you can trade, or retreat the bishop, and eventually we'll get our bishop to this square here. So this is the basic idea for Queen's Gambit. You want to get this bishop in this diagonal. It's very powerful, it's very strong. There's very imminent mating opportunities, mating threats there as well. And you can get your queen to support this too. So let's say, for example, our opponent makes this move. A common move is we want a castle, of course, and on top of that, our queen often finds itself on this c2 square as well. So that's for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's a battery for the bishop, so it's supporting an attack towards the king, and it's strengthening this diagonal very much so. Also, it's not just about checkmate, guys, because let's be honest, if you're playing an opponent which is maybe quite not so beginner, perhaps an intermediate player, checkmate isn't always that quick to find. However, it's there for future opportunities, but more importantly, there's pawn breaks right here as well. So we can use this pawn breaks to contest the center. See how we've got 1, 2, and 3 pieces supporting that pawn break. And we can take out the knight as well. So that's also useful ideas to bear in mind when you are playing the Queen's Gambit. You're still fighting for control of these central squares. And so we're especially focusing on this square to build up to the center. And also at the same time, our queen on c2, what else it does is it's controlling this possible open file later on. So, for example, whose move is it now? So it's a black move. Let's say, for example, we take here, and he takes back. Now we've got a semi-open file because it's only a black pawn on this file. There's no white pawn, so it's a semi-open file. And now that's giving an example as to how now this is being useful for controlling this file. Often he'll get a rook on that file too, and we'll get our rook on our file too. So this is its home when it comes to the Queen's Gambit opening. And let's just say, for example, he takes, and we take back. This is quite a standard position. He's going to want to get his queen out. Maybe he's going to also want to contest this c file. In fact, he wouldn't do that in this move. The computer just said he's massively winning. Let's say he gets a rook here instead. We also want to further control the center. Again, this rook is supporting that pawn to push to that square. So that's pretty much the useful ideas to bear in mind when playing the Queen's Gambit. And the pieces are all controlling the squares made for their best use. So in the Queen's Gambit, declined is here, here. Always. And even if you're playing as black, common idea is this too. So you can get your bishop out here. But this is a video for white, so you can understand how the opening works. They castle, you get your bishop out. If he takes, that's fine. Just make sure in the event that they come on here, it's also good to regain your bishop on this square, not to drop back here. So that's also quite important to bear in mind when you're playing the Queen's Gambit. So there's more in-depth details I can go into a bit later on. We can go into traps from the Queen's Gambit, for example. But this is a good introduction to how to approach the Queen's Gambit and how to set up your position to put yourself in a strong position. Just like I say, when you get your pieces out, you'll make sure you're castling and also that your rooks are centralized as well. So this is a good development for Queen's Gambit, and that summarizes my video here. Do like and subscribe. I'm going to be covering a whole series of different openings and opening theory so that you can improve your opening repertoire for black and for white as well. So thanks for watching, guys, and take care.